Hello, learners! By the way, I am Melanie Dacuya from Northeastern Mindanao State University of Lianga Campus. By the way, I will be your teacher for today's video lesson in Science 12. By starting the session, we will have a prayer for a better learning. To formally start this discussion, students are requested to get your notebook, paper, and pen. Our topic for today is about hazard, exposure, and vulnerabilities. We will understand and differentiate the relationship of its definition, elements or types, and examples. The following slides of this video are the significant objectives. Here in the Philippines is mostly exposed to hazard, which many of properties are vulnerable to disaster. This time, we will find out what are hazards, exposure, and vulnerabilities. What is hazard?
Hazard is a dangerous phenomenon, substance, and human activity condition.
It may cause loss of life, injury or other health impacts, property damage, loss of livelihoods and services, social and economic disruption, or environmental damage. Examples of hazards: slippery floors, excessive noise, poor lighting, fire, erosion, and etc. There are two major parts of hazards. First, health hazards. Health hazards are a commonplace in all work environments. They may be in the form of chemical hazard, such as a chlorine or a pesticide. Second, safety hazard. Safety hazard type of work safety hazards include spills. Spills can occur in any workplace, so it's important to create a plan to prevent falls after a spill. To decrease the likelihood of a spill hazard, you can put out a caution sign to alert others, so they should avoid the area. Now, let's proceed to exposure. What is exposure? Exposure is another component of disaster risk and refers to people, property, systems, or other elements present in hazard zones that are thereby subject to potential losses. If you place someone or something in an environment that causes them to experience something, you can call this exposure. Exposure to sun and rain will cause wood to turn gray. The three variables that make up exposure are sensitivity, shutter, speed, and aperture. This time, the vulnerabilities. What is vulnerabilities? Vulnerabilities are the inability to resist a hazard or to respond when a disaster has occurred. Vulnerability comes from the Latin word for wound or vulnus. For instance, people who live on a plain are more vulnerable to floods than people who live higher up. There are different elements of vulnerabilities that expose the specific hazard. First, physical vulnerability. Physical vulnerability includes population density levels, place of a settlement, the site design, and materials used for infrastructure and housing. When hazards occur, normally physical elements are severely damaged. Second, social vulnerability. Social vulnerability happens due to inability of people, organization, and societies to prevent severe effects from hazards because of the expected behavior in social interaction, institution, and system of cultural values. When social elements were exposed to hazard, this may lead to disruption of normal processes and activities in the community. Third, economic vulnerability.
Economic vulnerability is based on economic status of individuals, communities, and nations. The poorer the country, the more vulnerable to disaster because the lack of defense or budgets to build sturdy structures and put other engineering measures in place which protect them from being affected by disasters.
And last, environmental vulnerability.
Environmental vulnerability is caused by natural resources depletion and destruction. Organisms like humans, animals, and plants are all dependent on the environment for survival. Human activities like deforestation, burning of fossil fuels, and kaingin affect the natural abilities of the environment to protect itself from any natural hazard due to absence of trees, which may cause landslide and flash floods.
So, how can we reduce risk? Risk and hazard.
We can improve our abilities to monitor and forecast hazard.
Risk and exposure.
We can also increase awareness of the hazards faced by communities and exposure to them.
And risk and vulnerabilities.
The greatest benefits can be achieved by reducing the vulnerability to natural hazards.
Now, to deepen your understanding, let's have an activity.
This activity called Describe Me.
What is the hazard shown in the picture? When can we say that the situation given to you is an example of exposure? Very good, learners. We will have a last activity. Excellent, learners! You've got a perfect score. And that's all for today's lesson. Once again, I am Melanie Dakuya. Have a great day, learners!